The RNC, the Republican National Committee, has nearly a 7-1 money advantage over the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, which has more debt than cash on hand. Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. As we are steadfastly into the midterm elections, the national midterm elections, here in the last week or two, we had a midterm elections in St. Louis, Missouri, where in District 1, Wesley Bell, who's the incumbent Democratic House of Representatives individual, Cori Bush, who lost to Wesley Bell in the last election. She ran again against Wesley, and Wesley won the Democratic nomination for the House of Representatives for District 1 in St. Louis, Missouri. So people are voting. Midterm elections are coming. Republicans and Democrats are playing their chess games to get the appropriate seats. Republicans want to stay in the majority in Congress, of course, under the Trump administration. We know that. And the Democrats lost the last election with Biden and Kamala Harris, and now they're trying to climb their way back to the top. Right now, as I see, I'm an independent. I don't vote based on party line or identity politics. I vote based on how these politicians legislate. I don't vote based on what they say. I try to vote based on what they do. So I do my due diligence and research as much as I can on these candidates, especially if they've been in office before. So the Democrats got an uphill battle. Kamala Harris, they're in 2028, they're saying she might be the leading Democratic candidate, or it might be Governor Gavin Newsom out of the state of California. But if you look at his record, the state of California has been decimated with extreme liberal laws throughout the state, the level of homelessness. Gavin Newsom had a program to deal with the homeless situation, billions of dollars that have been lost and could not be found. They were not utilized on the homeless. There is a homeless pandemic, a panacea that is going across the entire state of California, from Los Angeles, San Diego, all the way down to Northern California, Sacramento, into Oakland. San Francisco has been just decimated with homelessness, helplessness, the opioid crisis. So I'm not sure if the Democrats are going to support Gavin Newsom. So who is going to be the leading Democrat in this next 2028 election? And on the Republican side, Trump is trying to set up a strong base, and he did not endorse J.D. Vance to be the leading candidate for the replacement of him after his tenure. So there is some issues or some concerns, or maybe the Republicans are playing it close to the cuff, where they're not going to let folks know who is going to be their Republican candidate in the next presidential election. Then there's also Democratic rumors that people want Barack Obama's wife, Michelle Obama, to run. I think she has more power and more of a base than Kamala Harris, for sure. So let's get into this story. Heading into the midterms, the RNC, the Republican National Committee, has built a massive financial edge over the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. And I'm doing this story because all of this, remember, money and politics go hand in hand. Generally, the person with the most money has the most power and can put people in these political positions. So there's a gap that's widened throughout the year and become a major storyline in Democratic circles. So here's a timeline of the gap between the Republicans and the Democrats, or the RNC and the DNC. Early 2026, the RNC held about 7 times more cash on hand than the DNC. March 2026 of this year, the RNC outraised the DNC in February. 18.5 million the RNC raised to the DNC's 10.3 million, entering March with $109 million. The RNC, Republican National Committee, to the DNC's, the Democratic National Committee's, 15.9 million, nearly 7-1. So the RNC as of March had 109 million in cash, and the DNC only had 15.9. April 2026, the DNC brought in 11.4 million in March, with 13.9 in cash on hand. This is a DNC. While the RNC raised 21.2 million and held roughly 116 million in reserves. So listen to those numbers and follow the timeline. So the DNC brought, as of April, the DNC brought in 11.4 million in March, with 13.9 million in cash on hand, while the RNC raised 21.2 million and held roughly 116.7 million in reserves. So by late July 2026, the RNC reported approximately 128.5 million on hand with no outstanding debt. Remember that. For you accounting and economics experts. While the DNC's debt exceeded cash by about 2 million. So the RNC reported approximately 128.5 million on hand with no debt, while the DNC's debt exceeded cash by about 2 million. So the DNC's debt problem. The DNC isn't just behind, it's underwater. As of June 30th, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, had 18.5 million in debt against just 16.3 million in cash on hand, largely tied to a record $15 million loan that was taken out last fall using its own headquarters building as collateral. So the DNC had $18.5 million in debt against just $16.3 million in cash, so $2 million underwater, and largely tied to a $15 million loan that they took out last fall, and they collateralized it with their headquarters building. That's crazy. For comparison, the DNC ended 2022, the last midterm cycle, with $30.5 million in cash and only about $42,000 in debt, a striking reversal. Adding to the optics problem, the DNC spent over $800,000 in non-voting territories like the Virgin Islands. They spent $800,000 on non-voting territories like the Virgin Islands while carrying the debt, and reportedly asked vendors to hold off on billing until after the election day. I don't know what's going on with the Democrats and their accounting system, their EBITDA, why it's happening. Competing narratives. The DNC's explanation, Chair Ken Martin has defended the spending as intentional. He says the DNC made a conscious decision to invest money in the work required to win in 2025, 2026, and beyond, converting cash into electoral assets, meaning more people, early organizing, better technology, and stronger state parties. Arguing a party is not a savings account. Its purpose is to build power. He also noted the current DNC has raised more money than any DNC without the White House in the party's 198-year history. So what are critics and analysts saying? Some Democratic strategists argue the fundraising landscape has fundamentally shifted since donors now have far more ways to direct money, through super PACs and outside groups with more control over how it's spent, reducing the incentive to give directing to the National Committee. So with more control over how it's spent, the money is spent, reducing the incentive to give directly to the National Committee. Others predict real money won't flow back to the DNC until there's a 2028 nominee. And that's what I was talking about with Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, possibly Michelle Obama being the Democratic nominee for the next president. So the bigger picture, the disparity extends beyond the two national committees, including allied super PACs and other GOP committees. Republicans have opened a cash advantage of roughly $500 million over Democrats heading into the final 100 days before the midterms, with the RNC, the Republican National Committee, and its aligned Trump GOP super PACs reporting a combined $1 billion they have to spend. The Republicans are raising money like crazy. Why it matters strategically. A pending Supreme Court case could make the RNC's cash edge matter even more. It could throw out long-standing limits on how much money parties can spend in direct coordination with candidates, which would let the RNC deploy its war chest much more directly to help GOP candidates on the ballot. So downstream committees are more competitive. The Republican National Committee Convention, the NRCC, had $117 million to the Democratic National Committee Convention, the DNCC, which had $115 million at the end of 2025. So the NRCC, the National Republican Committee Convention, had $2 million more than the Democratic National Committee Convention, while the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee had $21.7 million versus the National Republican Committee Convention's $19.3 million raised. So the Democrats raised in the Senatorial Committee campaign, they raised a little bit more than the Republicans. The real gulf is concentrated at the top between the NRC and the DNC themselves. Republicans currently control both chambers of Congress. In the Senate, Republicans hold a 53-47 majority, including 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats. In the House, Republicans hold a narrow majority, roughly a 218 to a 214, maybe 215, with a few vacancies fluctuating that number slightly. So the Republicans on the House side have a small majority of about 3 or 4 votes, or 3 or 4 seats over the Democrats. So right now the Republicans are holding both chambers of Congress, and we're in the midterm elections. Vote with your head and not your heart. I tell people all the time, and especially for blacks since 1960, that vote Democratic blindly. That is the worst. To me, not voting is better than utilizing your vote in an ignorant, uneducated way and just doing it because generations after generations voted one way. You just blindly vote that way. I think that's more dangerous than not voting at all. Tell me what you think. They are saying that the Republican National Committee is outpacing the Democratic National Committee in fundraising and raising money 7-1. 7-1. Money talks, bullcrap walks, especially when it comes to Washington, D.C. and our national politics. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, and God-fearing way.